Manever I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there, I see them yopo.
This is what the 24-hour economy is all about. And because a lot of people are interested, in a policy, they've asked questions about how we are going to implement this. What are the industries we have in mind? What exactly will government do to support and encourage the industries we are targeting to operate 24/7? How is this whole thing going to be implemented? How will people be able to take advantage of it? And so on and so forth. And that is why we've taken the time to publish what I'm holding in my hands. Thank you for giving us a copy. Thanks to your producer, Annie. The 24-hour economy, frequently asked questions and answers. Now, Doc, let me make it clear that this document is not a policy. Neither is it a strategy. The title is clear. Yesterday I saw the MPP rep on the show, Sly, trying to be mischievous about it. It's clear. This is not a policy. It is a document that tries to provide answers to frequently asked questions on the 24-hour economy. And so one of the questions has been that what industries will this 24-hour economy focus on? And if you look at point 3 of the document, we address that. We said that the 24-hour economy will primarily, but not exclusively, focus on 24-hour agro-processing. That is number 1 on the list, agro-processing. Agro-processing, we're talking about processing of our cashew, our tomato, our cocoa, our share, our sugar cane, and so on. Agro-processing. 24-hour pharmaceutical industry. Under the Exwa Mahama regime, we provided stimulus package of over $25 million for that industry, and that revolutionized the industry. Today, the capacity of that local pharmaceutical industry has been enlarged owing to that singular act of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, such that the companies that benefited from the package, the NS Chemists, the Danny Adams, the Tobinkos, and the rest, now have a bigger capacity to produce a lot of the medication we use in this country, not only for domestic consumption, but even for exports. And we think that that sector has the potential and the capacity to run 24/7 if the right enabling environment is created for them, for government. We've spoken about 24-hour manufacturing, especially the manufacturing of household goods. We've spoken about 24-hour construction, like we see anytime we travel outside the country, where we see major construction works or even maintenance, road maintenance works being done in the night. We believe that our companies here have the capacity, and if the right enabling environment and support is provided, we can have construction companies operating 24/7. We're talking about a 24-hour extractive industry. Here, what we have in mind is the mining industry and the quarrying industry. Already, there are a few mining companies operating 24/7 without any intervention by government supporting these, companies. What we aim to do is to get a lot more of these companies operating 24/7 by creating the necessary enabling environment. 24-hour sanitation and waste management, talking about the cleaning of our streets, our communities in the night. 24-hour digital startups and business process outsourcing. This will allow, young people well-versed in IT to work for companies across the globe, from Ghana. It is one of the reasons why John Mahama built Accra Digital Center, which currently operates 8 hours, and which has the capacity to currently host, 10,000 young people at a go, working for various businesses and companies across the world from Ghana. And we are saying that if we get Accra Digital Center to operate 24/7, we will be able to increase the capacity to 20,000 or to 30,000. That is it. And the $3 billion ICT, investments in ICT that John Dramani Mahama has spoken about will further open new opportunities in the IT world for young people to be able to work round the clock and make, good wages for that. We've also spoken about 24-hour financial services, because if you are going to have a 24-hour economy, then financial institutions, including banks and so on, will have to, some of them will have to have 24-hour services. 24-hour retail centers, 24-hour transportation services, and even for public institutions, we've said that there are certain public institutions which must run 24 hours because of demand for better services, for more efficient services by the populace. If you go to these institutions, you see huge traffic, you see huge queues that these institutions are not able to meet in a timely manner, and that affects productivity. That even affects revenue mobilization by the state. If we can get these institutions to operate 24/7, we will be doing a lot of good to the citizens of this country, the people of this country, in terms of giving them better and more efficient services. And we'll be doing a lot of good for the state in terms of raising revenue, promoting productivity, and so on. And we've spoken about, for example, ports and harbors. I've heard people say, oh, currently the ports operate 24/7. Not wholly true. The ports had always operated on an 8-hour shift. It was His Excellency John Dramani Mahama who decided to expand the Tema port through a PPP arrangement, which has now birthed what we have, or what we call the Meridian Port Services Terminal, the MPS Terminal, and which terminal today has made our Tema port the second largest port in the whole of West Africa. Now, that terminal operates 24/7, but the section of the work at Tema Port that is handled by the Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority doesn't operate 24/7. They start at 8 and close at 5. The Takoradi Port doesn't operate 24/7. Even for MPS, that as a result of the vision of the nation builder John Dramani Mahama today is operating 24/7, has a lot of challenges, because you know that customs don't operate 24/7, and the financial institutions don't operate 24/7. So there are many things that people seek to do at the MPS terminal on a daily basis in the nights, especially, which becomes challenging for them. So to have our ports and harbors operating 24/7 is something that will be new. It will be an improvement of what President Mahama started. And here we are talking about not just Tema, but we are even talking about Takoradi and so on. And we are saying that if the ports and harbors will be operating 24/7, then customs should be operating 24/7, and then financial institutions should be operating 24/7 to really give meaning to this policy intervention. We've spoken about the passport office, we've spoken about DVLA and all that. And when you mention these public institutions, there are some who say that, but now there is online application for passports and so on. By the way, let me indicate that the online application for passports, contrary to what our friends in the MPP have been saying, is a brainchild and the legacy of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Specifically, the online passport application system was introduced in 2014 under the leadership of the then Foreign Affairs Minister, Honorable Hannah Tete. And so we are very much aware of that because it is our legacy. However, an application for a passport is just one component of the process of getting a passport. The processing of the passport application is very important. And so you can apply for the passport in the confines of your home, even in the night. But because those who are supposed to process it work on an 8-hour shift and close by 5, that is why till date you need to wait for weeks, and in some cases months, before you get your passport. Even the printing of the passport booklet for you can be a challenge. So it's not just about the application, it's about having these institutions operating around the clock so that they can fast track processing, printing, and provide better services to the good people of this country. And this clearly will be tied to productivity and revenue mobilization, because the more applications you're able to process and deliver, the more revenue the state gets. Again, we have said that the 24-hour economy will be implemented in the context of other development initiatives that the next NDC Mahama government, inshallah, will be implementing. And we are looking at areas of health, areas of education, affordable housing, transportation, even in the area of justice delivery, where currently you have our costs choked to the brim. Yet these courts operate morning by 5 p.m., sometimes even 4:30 they've closed. and all that. If we can, in the medium term, get some of these institutions to operate 24/7, it will help citizens of this country get better services from the government. And so one may ask, what then is the NDC Mahama administration going to do differently to enable all these industries I have outlined operate 24/7? Very simple. We've said number one, we are going to provide any company that participates in the 24-hour economy strategy cheaper and reliable electricity. Cheaper and reliable electricity. How are we going to do that? We're saying we're going to introduce something called the time of use tariff, first of its kind in Ghana. What it simply means is that you will be made to pay for electricity based on the day of the week and the time of the day you consume the power. And so we realize that during off-peak hours, when the nation goes to sleep, a lot of power goes waste. And that is what brings up the issue of excess capacity. We have our power plants producing the power, but we have very few entities consuming that power. And yet, that is power government must pay for. And so if you have a 24/7 economy, then that power will not be going waste, because there will be activity in the night to consume that power and to pay relatively cheaper prices. And some say, okay, but then how will you be able to clear the debts in the energy sector? To get something for that power which is already going waste is better than getting nothing. And so that is why a 24-hour economy is imperative, because now you're going to have activities, commercial activities in the night booming. We're going to be consuming that power which is going waste, because this government is totally clueless. They don't know how to put that power to use. We will put it to use by having companies operating 24/7. We'll give them time of use tariffs by installing modern smart meters, which will be calibrated to charge them lesser tariffs during off-peak hours. It's as simple as that. The meter will be calibrated to charge you a lesser tariff during off-peak hours. Then somebody says that, oh, people are going to abuse it. They are going to take advantage of it. Doc, I'm sure you've gotten that question a lot. So they are just going to structure their operations in such a way that they won't work during the day, but they work in the night to benefit from the time of use tariff. Well, what I have to say to that is that for every policy you introduce, people will try to take advantage of it. People will try to abuse it. There will be challenges. There is no challenge-free policy. Even for the tax incentives we provide businesses in this country. Doc, haven't you seen businesses using tax incentives for purposes, contrary to the objects of the tax incentives? So human beings will always try to take advantage of systems like this. And that is why you need proper monitoring, proper evaluation, proper regulation and enforcement to ensure compliance. And so when we talk about a 24-hour economy, it's not just going to be a slogan out there like some people came and told us one day, Ghana beyond aid. No, you're going to have institutions which will be in charge of the regulation of this policy and ensure compliance and enforcement. And in this day and age of IT, it's very, very easy to calibrate these modern smart meters, which will be deployed for the time of use tariff system, to check such abuses. So that if during the day you are consuming 5 kilowatts hour of power, but during the night you're consuming 50 kilowatts, clearly the system will flag it, because the system can be calibrated to detect such abuses or such cases of people wanting to take advantage of that. It is very easy to do that even with the current modern smart meters we have. We've spoken about tax incentives to reduce the cost of operation of these businesses, because we have local businesses here, even foreign businesses here, who have the capacity to produce to meet domestic demand and ensure import substitution. And by doing that, reduce the pressure on our currency, improve our reserves, create jobs, and so on. However, they are unable to do so because of the high cost of their operation, which makes them uncompetitive, which makes their prices comparatively higher than the imports, the cheaper and in some cases subsidized imports they have to compete again. So by using tax incentives, significant tax incentives for these strategic industries, we will be able to reduce significantly their cost of doing business, and they will be able to be competitive, not only in the Ghana context, but even in the continental, sub-regional, and international context. We've also spoken about financing supports for certain strategic businesses to help them operate 24/7. Because if some of these companies are to meet domestic demand, they cannot do it alone. They cannot do it with just credit from our financial institutions. Knowing the high cost of credit, government must intervene. And it is for this reason that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, before he left office in 2016, passed the Ghana Export-Import Back Bill, where we consolidated funds like the EDIF and so on, and decided that these funds should be channeled into the promotion of exports, production, not just for the domestic economy, but for exports. And some of these funds will be deployed to support these businesses. So once businesses are getting cheaper power and reliable power, once they are getting significant tax incentives, once they are getting financing support from the Exim Bank and other vehicles or platforms that we will be putting in place, and once they are operating, especially in an atmosphere of security and safety, we are sure that we will have a lot of companies and businesses running 24/7 in 3 shifts, and through that, there will be more jobs. Like President Mahama said, Kwaku may get a job in the morning, but Kwejo is likely to get a job on an evening shift, and Amma is likely to get a job on a night shift. And Doc, anytime we have provided, this, I'll be wrapping up. Anytime we have provided these explanations, some have asked that, already in the existing 8-hour schedule, there are a lot of inefficiencies. What will we do about that? That is something that only applies to the public sector, not the private sector, really. And we have said that we will be passing a new Employment Act, which will be implemented side by side with the Labor Act. And as part of that, we will be putting in place measures to root out the age-long practices in our public sector that militate against productivity. So discipline is something we're going to promote, and productivity is something we're going to take very seriously, even in the already existing 8-hour cycle. Finally, some have said that would a policy be compulsory? No, it will not be compulsory. No economic policy in the nature of a 24-hour economy is made compulsory. It is voluntary. The policy blueprint will be out there, put it out.
When?
You see, so 2 levels. First of all, the policy blueprints for the 24-hour economy strategy. Okay, or let me say this blueprints, let me use the right words. The blueprints for the 24-hour economy strategy will be put out before the 2024 election. That is after the launch of our manifesto. Okay. However, the implementation blueprints for the policy can only be put out after you have won power. And that implementation framework will have to take, or will have to, have the inputs of various stakeholders like organized labor, like AGI, like the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce, and so on. You need all their inputs. Federation of Labor.
When will you launch your manifesto?
The manifesto will be launched early next year.
Because it looks like quite a number of people have expressed an interest in seeing the policy document so that they can critique it properly.
Sure. Yeah. Criticisms, constructive criticisms are important, not criticisms about people who have their wives cheating on them because they'll be working 24/7, not comical, criticisms like that. But constructive criticisms are welcome. President Mahama is open to that, and we will take all that on board, especially in the implementation blueprint, which will only be introduced after we have won power. And finally, Doc, some have said that if you are not going to make it compulsory, then you are leaving out the private sector. No, that is not it. These are rational businesses and companies, rational entities. They are in business to make profits. They have, over the years, been calling for government to introduce something like this to enhance their capacity and their competitiveness, to reduce their cost and all that. So they are happy to embrace it. And that is why already some of them are endorsing the policy, saying that it's a game changer and all that. So it's voluntary because you have to apply, and we need to put in place the right measures to ensure that you qualify. And if you qualify, even to comply with a governing law for the policy and all that, because you cannot employ the same set of people and get them to work 24/7. That would be against the law. The law will ensure that people don't work beyond 8 hours. And if for some reason they have to work beyond 8 hours, those conditions will be clearly spelled out in the law. And the overtime you must pay them will be clearly spelled out in the law. And that overtime will be so high that you wouldn't want to abuse the system by just employing a few people, for more than 8 hours, and all that. So all these things are things we have carefully thought about. And finally, those who say that, it is already being done in Ghana. That is not true. As we speak, you can talk about some businesses and companies who operate in the night or even operate 24/7 on their own without any deliberate policy intervention by the government to support them. So when we talk about our 24-hour economy, like Mr. Pratt said yesterday, it's not a night economy. And it is not a chance event where just people will just work in the night without any policy intervention from government. This will be the first time that Ghana will have a policy intervention in line with our 40-year development plan to support companies and businesses that operate 24/7 with cheaper power and reliable power, with tax intensive, with financing support, with security support, and so on. This will be the first of this kind. Okay. So it does not exist. And finally, this is my last finally. For those who say that the policy will be difficult because of the issue of demand, the market, we need to think about the market, demand and all that. Look, when I hear some of these things, I laugh. Because I ask myself, what demand are you talking about here? You are an economy that imports over 90% of the things you consume. Go and look at the top 10 items we import in this country and tell me whether we don't have the capacity to produce these things. The problem is not about the demand is already there. That is why day in, day out, businesses import these things into the country. They get finished, they go again and import, and people are buying on a daily basis. The demand is there. The reason is that our businesses are not able to be competitive. They are not able to operate at a competitive cost and produce at a good comparative cost. So in competition with the cheaper imports, they lose out, even in the domestic market, and they have no chance of success even in the export market. Whether you are looking at the WTO market or the AFTA market, they are not able because the cost of production is too much. So if the cost of doing business can be reduced and businesses in Ghana can produce at a comparative cost, the existing demand for rice, the existing demand for sugar, the existing demand for tin tomato, the existing demand for toothpaste, the existing demand for refrigerators, for microwaves will absorb what they produce.
All right.
That is it. And that is what the 24-hour economy is all about. This is something Sydney is doing, London is doing it, UK is doing it, America is doing it, even in Africa. Kenya is thinking of doing it. They've captured it in their Agenda 2030, even Kenya.
All right.
And so it is something we can do. It is very possible. The naysayers and the political Jeremiahs who don't have any policies can continue to ridicule it. But the young people who are yearning for decent, well-paying jobs know that this is hope for them.
Right.
And they can trust the honest, visionary nation builder, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, to deliver on this. Thank you.